And I think the connection between customer experience and loyalty, the idea of delivering a better customer experience, has always been the goal of loyalty, and how do we achieve that? And the goal of loyalty marketing, I should say. So it's a perfect setup for our next presentation and discussion that will follow. And I'm very happy to introduce Jisun Hahn, who is the EVP and Chief Strategy Officer for Kognitiv. And she's going to be talking about new ways to approach managing the customer life cycle and the customer journey. And then we're going to have a little chat about it. So with that, Jisun.
Thank you, Phil, and thank you to our conference co-chairs and all the organizers bringing us together in this incredible space. Michael, that was a fascinating presentation and thankfully very connected to what I'm going to talk to you about today. We did not coordinate this, but that was a perfect lead into what I'm going to talk to you about. My name is Jisun Hahn, as Phil mentioned, and I have to say I'm personally so excited to be here in this beautiful space. I came from the Toronto area. I'm just curious, anybody else here from Toronto? No, I'm alone. Okay. Canada. I know there are a few of you here from Canada. Yes, yes. So if you know, you know. Canada was definitely one of the more conservative markets during the pandemic. I think we had a total of 4 or 5 lockdowns over the course of 2.5 years. So this is the first major event that I've been to in probably 3 years where I'm interacting with people in real life. So apologies in advance if my social skills are a little dull. Got a little catching up to do with our fellow European colleagues here who have been maybe less restricted for a little while. And I think there's a bunch of folks who've traveled from the States. And I think you're looking at me like, pandemic? What are you talking about? I'll catch you up later. So very exciting to be here and to be with you in person. And as Phil mentioned, earlier in the opening, loyalty is in a really interesting place. And a bit of my background, I have been in this game of loyalty, data analytics, customer experience, whatever you want to call it, for the better part of, I hate to admit it, but 20 years. And it's fair to say that I've seen some stuff. I have seen some stuff. Similar to Michael, the basics haven't really changed, but if I go way back to when I started in loyalty, I'm talking producing these coupon booklets for collectors to rip out coupons and physically walk to a store to take advantage of mega bonus events. And I know I'm looking at some of you and you're looking at me like, what's a physical coupon? I'll get to that later. To today, when you look at some really innovative programs, like, I'm going to call him out here and he's not going to be happy with me, but like DOTS, the coalition program in Brazil, we are so fortunate to have the founder, Roberto Schade, here with us today because it is a program that is not just digital-led, but it's expanding beyond loyalty. Really focuses on what a collector cares about beyond the earn and burn, right? It provides that experience, it's digital-led, and there's going to be a coalition panel later this afternoon that I highly recommend people go to because that industry is changing so rapidly. If anybody's been following the news in Canada, you see that we've had quite a few challenges from a coalition perspective, but they're great examples of what has to happen for us to survive. So from coalition, I transitioned to fintech, financial services in the technology world. And that was a phenomenal experience in terms of understanding the power of technology and what happens when you focus on loyalty and creating experiences and having more of that transactional relationship that Phil talked about, to harnessing the power of technology to bring it to the fingertips of the practitioners. And then to where I am today, Kognitiv, as the Chief Strategy Officer. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we do, but more importantly, a very specific methodology around lifecycle mapping. But all those years of experience has culminated into one major learning for me. And Phil mentioned this around how we're at a bit of an inflection point. I think the practice of loyalty for at least the last couple of decades kind of reminds me of, you know, those penguins at the zoo that you see circling their enclosure day in and day out and expecting a different outcome, slowly going crazy as a result. I think that's where we've been, right? We're doing the same things again and again. But the advent of technology, certainly in the last 5 years, and Michael, you mentioned this, is exponentially changing the game. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. So before I get into customer lifecycle mapping and the methodology that we use at Kognitiv and where we think it needs to go, I do want to introduce Kognitiv for those of you who are not familiar. Kognitiv bought EMEA about 5 years ago, so our loyalty legacy runs deep. It runs through our blood. We have many decades of experience in the loyalty, especially the loyalty management system, as well as technology. We have clients all around the world, and we work with all the verticals, including financial services and telco and retail. So we have certainly all of the years of experience that has brought us to a certain point where we know that technology has to be leveraged in a better, more useful way. So back to what we're here to talk about. I know many of you have probably in your careers leveraged some sort of customer segmentation model. I want to introduce you to one that we use at Kognitiv called Smart Journey. And you know, at a very basic level, the first stage that we take with the Smart Journey methodology, which is a methodology that we have used for over 60 clients across many markets. And anytime we start a loyalty engagement or anytime a program is about to be launched, we start with this. And it's exactly the place you want to start, because at a very basic level, what you do is you take data, and we all know data is an incredibly important commodity, but it's meaningless until it's converted into some form of intelligence. We take the data and we sort the customers into very basic segmentation buckets. It's amazing to me, you know, this is just the first step, but it's amazing to me that when we do this, the amount of insights that come through from just this very basic approach, right? So you start to understand how many of your customers were acquired, how many of them were activated, how many of them are really engaging with you, and how many of them are actually growing to be the best possible versions of themselves. And as Michael mentioned, so many organizations are really focused in this first two areas. And it's incredible to me that many of them focus 80% of their investments, and I'm going to share with you some research that validates this. And they end up spending the rest of their time here. And time again, I've seen dozens and dozens of these design engagements where we try and get our clients to really focus more of their efforts on engage and grow, but it's challenging. We all know we have to do it. For some reason, we don't. For some reason, we don't. And we all know how challenging it is. As soon as a customer has started to decline, they've already made that decision, right? They've already decided, look, the trust that I had in you, you're not delivering on that promise, you're no longer relevant, I've made up my mind. Then they start to show you that they're kind of moving away. By then, it's very challenging. So the act of sorting alone is really insightful, but that's really not where you want to stop, right? That's just the first step. And so what we do with this methodology is we then start to show the movement of our customers between each of these sections. Because as you know, that customer relationship journey is not linear. It would be lovely if it were, but it is not. We start to map it out. And so, as I mentioned, right, data points being our most important commodity here, they're really kind of useless unless you know where they are in relation to each other, how far you are from the next stage, which direction you need to go. You know, for instance, here we are at the Kunsthaus Museum. I don't know if anyone's had an opportunity yet to explore this beautiful town, but apparently a very short walk away is the Laderack chocolate shop, which apparently you can buy chocolate by the pound. So if you haven't had a chance to go, I think it's well worth a very short walk to do that. I certainly will probably be going after this, so if anybody wants to join me on a walk. And so we do a very similar thing with our our Smart Journey methodology. So again, starting with sorting your customers and understanding where they are, then we take the data and we say, look, you've had a number of customers in the acquire bucket for far too long. They have not activated. At that point, they are absolutely at risk, right? And I've seen this time and time again. Every industry is a little different. If I look at financial services and card portfolios, for instance, if you've acquired somebody because you've had a great acquisition bonus and they haven't activated within weeks, they're at risk. If a cardholder goes into the activate bonus and they've made their first purchase, because again, you've given them an amazing welcome bonus, but you said, hey, make your first purchase within a few days and get this welcome bonus that equates to a flight, but they haven't made their second purchase, they're already declining and they're already at risk. Again, most of our efforts are here, and by the time you're there, it costs way too much. So what do marketers do? They spend more time reaching new audiences, right? Again, very, very connected to what Michael was saying. And you spend all your time acquiring. I call it fishing with a wide net versus fishing with a pole, and not enough in the engage and grow buckets. We've applied this methodology, and again, I think I mentioned, we do this often with these design engagements, and we applied it with one of our clients, a specialty retailer out of the States, who came to us and said, look, my loyalty program is just costing me too much money. A lot of my members are not spending more than my non-members. Don't know what's going on. You guys need to help us. So we applied the methodology, and the one thing that it does is it allows marketers to focus in on the problems within the portfolio. So instead of rewarding everybody with the same offer, it allowed us to red circle the areas that were most critical. And the area that was most critical for them was there were a number of people who looked like they should be some of their best customers, but never got to a redemption. So anybody here who's been practicing loyalty at all, you know that first redemption is critical. It's the catalyst, it's the fuel to engagement, right? And so what it enabled them to do is target a very specific cohort and say, give them a very relevant offer to get them to that first redemption, and let that be the catalyst to growth. So they were able to reduce spend on the program, involving incremental margin growth. They were able to then see that more of their collectors were actually getting value out of the program, so all the KPIs were positively impacted. Redemption spend, as we all know as loyalty practitioners, that's a good KPI sometimes, right? If you constantly bonus the ones who get it, and they're getting there anyway, sometimes from a financial perspective, that can work against you. However, when you're getting redemption spend from those who haven't yet seen the value of that program, then you're starting to engage and wake up the passive segments. So I want to flip the lens a little bit and talk to you about some research that our friends at Forrester had conducted that I think really underscores why we have been struggling. And before I do that, I want to look at it from a consumer standpoint, right? So if you boil down these life cycle segments, there's really 3 areas that are critical. From the time that, you're trying to reach a new audience, we all know that it's important to be relevant, but don't be fooled into thinking you actually have a relationship with them. Once you are in a relationship with them, once they've actually committed to you, that's when their expectation of relevancy increases exponentially. And so once that purchase has happened, now you're in this relationship, you need to build trust, and you're trying to go from courtship to bliss, what we call in our world advocacy, and this is the most critical time. Now, Forrester conducted some research in Q4 of last year, so this is just a few months old, and they looked at it from the lens of CMOs, marketers, as well as consumers. And they talked to the CMOs around, where do you focus your marketing efforts? And a lot of them said, it's all about driving market share, it's all about reaching new audiences, and it's in that discover, evaluate, commit phase. And a lot of consumers are saying, yes, I want a relevant offer. It has to be of value to me. It's got to be easy for me to commit. However, once I do, I really want to make sure that what you're talking to me about is just as relevant. I want to ensure that there's personalization. I want an offer that's similar to everybody else. Their expectation of personalization increases exponentially. Yet, the focus for many organizations are in these three initial phases: the discover, evaluate, and commit. Now, the good news is, they also discovered in this research that having a loyalty program is an explicit opportunity for your customer to say, I am ready to commit. It's the equivalent of putting a ring on it, essentially, right? So 63% of respondents have said, if I'm in a loyalty program, personalization is very important, or is important. 42% is very important. So that really makes the stakes higher, doesn't it? So once they've made that commitment, they expect personalization to be a key component of the relationship with the brand. So why are we struggling with this? The CMOs that were surveyed cited 3 reasons. First, personalizing offers and experiences are challenging in that they don't have access to the diversity of content that they need. But the next 2, I think, are the most important and most telling. Driving decision-making with customer insights and coordinating the different marketing service providers. So as I said earlier, I think technology is changing the game, but it's also creating some challenges for us, right? How many of us have multiple partners delivering different aspects of our strategy? And when you've got disparate solutions, you have disparate experiences, right? So to get to that one single view of the customer, to get to an integrated approach, an integrated strategy in terms of delivering those experiences, it's becoming more challenging. So at Kognitiv, we're taking this methodology of smart training, as I took you through, around sorting, mapping, and understanding where your consumers are. And we're going to be converting that into an insights platform. And truthfully, this is where I think we need to go. To be a little less like those penguins, a little less stuck. We need to take the power of the insights and put it at the fingertips of practitioners so you can make day-to-day decisions around who to target and when to target them, right? I think the methodology that many use from a segmentation standpoint is great for that moment in time, but if you can have access to a platform where it helps you understand on a daily basis who to target, that is, I think, where we need to go from a loyalty perspective. So I think the challenges that we have seen where much of what we're doing is based on what is happening in that moment, shifting from a rules-based segmentation approach to day-to-day insights, powered by machine learning. That is ultimately where we're going to get unstuck. Thank you.
Great job. Please sit. Everyone sit. Customers, milestones, that sort of thing. So pretty cool. Managed to get some extra copies of these printed at the end. You probably won't need them all. Exactly. And Charlotte? Yeah, or they'll lose them tomorrow. Hey, Philip, can you? There you go. Thank you so much. You can hear. The Zoom-house calculator.
That's Mike.
Hey, Mike.
That's Mike.
Mike, if you can hear me, your audio is live. Thanks. So where were we? Unstuck. Thank you for what a perfect segue, and what a great topic after what Mike talked about this morning in terms of connecting CX and loyalty. So before we start our discussion, I want to ask a couple of questions of you guys in the audience. Number one, who's actually doing life cycle mapping? Okay. We'll categorize that for everybody who can't see, between 5 and 10 hands raised. Number two, Who thinks that their customer experience or their CRM activities are well integrated with their loyalty program and what they consider loyalty marketing?
Interesting.
That sound of burping that you hear is funny. If you've been, yeah, no, there's a few, but if we label them as companies, you can count them on one hand.
Yeah.
Right? So pretty substantive data points. Last question, and I am asking these questions to be provocative, but also because I think it goes to what we all are hopefully going to be inspired to focus on after these couple of days and during these couple of days. So the last question is, how much time do you spend looking at data and insights a day? Like, anybody spend more than 5% of any given day looking at data and insights? Okay, that's better. But those first two really get to this, the idea of being stuck. And, you know, we lament the transactional nature of loyalty and the disconnect between what we as marketers think of as the customer experience, but more importantly, I think, the data point that Mike showed from Bain. I love when same questions are asked of customers and you know, marketing leaders, because you see these disconnects. But it seems like this new offering is a solution to getting that, injecting the emotion so customers actually feel like the company is valuing them.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, when you look at segmentation and you're usually pulling it at a moment in time, it's a data point and it's converted to intelligence, but when you have it, you know, powered by technology, to your point, you're actually starting to get a pulse on what's happening, right? You start to see the organic shifts as opposed to just that particular moment. And, you know, not to get to, you had mentioned this, right? We need to get from transaction to emotion. And the only way to do that is to truly understand that that data point is a human being, right? You need to put a heartbeat into that data. Like, we need to start looking at it that way. And the only way that we can do that is to actually understand what is happening on a daily basis with that data. And it's surprising to me that the convergence of loyalty and technology hasn't yet happened in that way yet. And that's why, and what I mentioned earlier, in all the years of loyalty that I've been practicing, I am so passionate about what we're building from a technology standpoint, because I have seen the challenges of doing it from a rules-based standpoint. It's absolutely helpful in the moment, but if I had many years ago the opportunity to see what's happening with consumers on a day-to-day basis, that would have been so powerful to make those decisions every day, right? And so, yeah, this, and I know our Chief Product Officer is going to be providing a demo tomorrow, I believe, late afternoon, but this Insights platform, I know, is going to help a lot of people.
Hey, Phil. Nobody raised their hand when you asked the question. I did agree. So the question is, why isn't it? And the other question is, as a strategist, is there a weakness where you can just look at the data, but you don't have a strategist sitting on the data every day to provide insight to the rest of the business? Whether you guys either planning the promotions or the loyalty program owner as to what the data is showing. I found that those are the two greatest weaknesses. The IT is not supporting the total enterprise from an integrated standpoint, and data is in silos. And secondarily, you have really good solutions from an analytics standpoint, but then you don't have good strategists sitting on top of the data allocated to provide the strategic direction relative to how.
Yeah, well, I think that goes to the idea that this is not easy. If this were easy, right, everybody would have raised their hands. We'd be doing this on the beach on the Mediterranean, right, because we're so flush.
Yeah.
And customers being surveyed would feel like brands actually care about them. But I think what's so fascinating about this topic is we know what it's like when we meet people at a cocktail party or we meet people here that we haven't met in person, and you have something relevant. I wish I could channel with the British accent because it sounds so much better. And the way I'm going to say it, because these words originally were from a partner in my old firm. And it's, how do we show them we know them?
Yeah.
And I think that, and I agree with, I think we're all in agreement with you in that this is challenging. The tools haven't been there, right?
I would say, a little bit nuanced from that. I think the tools have been there. The challenge is there are so many of them, and to get them all in one platform is the challenge, right? And that's how we see it at Kognitiv. We really do not see loyalty just as a program, right? And that's how we've all seen it for so long. It isn't just earn and burn. It has to be an outcome. And the only way that it can be an outcome is if you have these solutions integrated in one platform, so one practitioner can access the experiences and the data and then execute on it, through one platform, right?
But your IT partner, right? We didn't plan on this.
Yeah.
I'm just being a handful of errors. The biggest challenge is the biggest challenge, now it's on. The biggest challenge is, I feel, getting IT resources away from ongoing operations to say, oh, we have this technology. This technology has tremendous tools and feature functionality and capability. And if we move the enterprise-wide data over to this technology, now we can empower it. And so the problem is aligning priorities, leveraging the power of the data, and then your execution to be able to show me that you know me.
So, great. So why don't you, thank you for that setup, David.
Thank you.
Jisun, why don't you talk about sort of the tool set and how it works and why this is a great lever to get things unstuck.
I mean, part of the way to remove dependency from your IT is to find a solution where it's in one single platform, right? And I think because loyalty has to evolve from being just a program to an outcome, it's important for practitioners to find a solution that has all the tools in one place. And part of what we're building here and why I'm so excited about the work that we're doing at Kognitiv is, we have a single platform that has 3 different lanes. One is what we call the loyalty lane, the loyalty management system, as well as this insights platform that will be within that. The second lane is a data activation lane, and really what that does is it allows you to take the data and the insights that you're getting from that and actually activate on it. And there's a number of products that we're working on. The third piece, which I get really excited about, is called the partner collaboration piece. One of the challenges I know many of our clients have, and that I've seen personally, even before Kognitiv, is a lot of retailers and banks would say, my customers want more relevant content and offers and experiences, but I can only provide them so much, right? Like, I've got this sort of single view of what I can give them. I can give them discounts, I can give them great experiences in the store, but that's it. So to partner with others and to create marketplaces where they can go and get more of the diversity of experience is really critical. And to that question, this being part of a platform means you can execute on all of that in one place. And so I think that's really important. So to me, it isn't so much just the technology, it's about the fact that we have such disparate technology and solutions across so many different vendors, and consolidating that effort, I think, is going to be key.
And I think you mentioned your background in coalitions, right? The proposition behind coalitions is you get to triangulate all these different sources of data, but you guys are able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of and this is why I'm so excited about the coalition panel later this afternoon, because I think coalition is such a great way to bring so many brands together. I call it sort of the blowfish effect, right? To look larger than you actually are and to bring in partners. I think there's some great examples of when it's done really well, like DOTS, versus examples of what happens when you're trying to, when you've got these brands that are competing with each other, and nobody really feels special, right? And that's a challenge with that particular model. There are ways to get around that. But for us, We want to be a provider of a solution that makes the client and the brand the hero, right? They're in control over the experiences that they're delivering. They're in control over the diversity of offers and experiences that they can put in front of the customer. But they're the hero, and they're the ones who are engaging with that customer and building that trust.
Phil, so can I ask? Yeah, we have 2 questions.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? I think we all intuitively know that doing targeted, sorry, seeing Pringle from the Loyalty Podcast. I think we intuitively know that targeted messages are the right thing to do. As you said, customers want them. You've got certain data points that allow you to do it. But I've worked with 2 brands, 2 major brands, one of which I can guarantee that almost everyone in this room has had an email for the past year. They do it because volume beats targeting. And the CFO always wins that debate. Now, how do you get between that, where the CFO just wins all the time by saying, why don't we just email everyone with everything? So can you talk me through that debate and how you win that debate? Because that's critical, right?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. That debate between the marketer and the CFO, that has been an ongoing battle in loyalty, hasn't it? I see so many people nodding their heads. If you let the CFO lead the conversation, you're never going to build an engaging relationship with the customer. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it. And let...
Just look at your inbox.
Yeah, look at your inbox, exactly. And part of that, I think, is, the CFO is making the decision. If you think about it from the basics of, I'm going to geek out for a second, with any loyalty program, right? We all have to set ultimate redemption rates. We all know what that is. We've got to guess in the future of every point or whatever person you're going to issue gets redeemed. It's going to be a certain percentage. I have seen so many CFOs say, make it smaller. Just make it a little bit smaller so we get more margin up front. You know what that means? That means that collector is going to get less collectors are going to get less value, and that particular collector is always going to get less value. So you can never let the CFO lead the conversation. But I think that example you're giving around emails, I think that's probably partly that, but I think that's mostly the technology. The reason why everybody fishes with such a wide net is they don't know who to target on a day-to-day basis. These segmentation approaches that I've been talking about are so helpful when you're having a challenge. By then, so many people have churned, right? But how do you get those insights day to day, week to week, so you can actually really focus in on who you're going after? That's why we need to take these methodologies and convert them into insight platforms that are driven out of technology. To me, that's a technology issue and a focus issue, and maybe partly a CFO issue as well.
And I think, just to add one thing, and then let's take another question, it's creating the right evidence and testing the right things.
Yeah.
Because you can win CFOs over with data and showing profitability.
Yeah, actually, that's true. That's a very good point. Oftentimes what happens is you're working towards one metric at the end of a program or what's happening in the moment. And again, another great example of when you don't have the insights day to day, it's really hard to even make the proof point internally, let alone to your consumers.
And that's where technology is a barrier, but it's ultimately people being able to think and persuade, right?
Yeah.
In theory, if you're a marketer, you're in the business of persuasion.
Yeah.
And one more question, please.
I will go shortly. My question is about the voice of the customer and the analyzing of the dark data, the customer sentiment, verbatim analytics. Do you integrate this type of feedback of the customers with all the other loyalty and CRM?
Yes, absolutely. We think that is very important. For this particular insights platform, Kognitiv Pulse, that we're calling it, we built it so that you only need client data, right? We really don't want the requirement of having to have multiple sources of data, but 100%, I think, to that question just more broadly, even outside of this insights platform, I think being able to not just look at the data that you have access to, but to bring in other forms of data to get truly that 360 view is really important. And we built it so that it could just use the data that you have, or it could actually be opinionated with other data sources as well.
Which brings me to another question related to data and this notion of how do you prove it to the rest of the organization. How quickly are you guys able to see the impact in terms of effectiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the output, I know our CPO is going to be going into this in a little bit more detail tomorrow, but what is brilliant about this platform is it goes through what we call cognition, which is a decisioning layer that uses AI and machine learning. Actually, it was built on, I think, 96 different machine learning models. The output is nearly on demand. And so that is what's so powerful about it, right? And so it takes that data and it takes it as often as the collector or the client, is able to give it to us, or as frequent as they are able to give it to us, and the output is in your real time. And so I think, again, that is really the power behind it.
So there's some good agreement in terms of the opportunity. I mean, this does go back to what Michael talked about back in the direct mail days, because direct mail was built on exactly these kind of insights. And so we moved to digital, and more is better than less, right? Which is a fallacy, unless you think about the customer perspective. So you use the word stuck. So I want to kind of wrap this with a question of, this makes you more bullish about this body of work in terms of impacting organizations?
100%. I think no matter what, the practice of loyalty for us to be a little less like those crazy penguins. I think we need access to insights daily, not weekly, not monthly. I think we need to put the power back at the fingertips of practitioners, right? I think we need to provide the power of intelligence so that we're no longer battling internally with the CFOs of the world and no longer 8 weeks, 3 months behind what our consumers have already done. So I'm 100% more bullish with something like this, and I think this is just an example of the type of ways we need to evolve as practitioners.
Anybody have any more questions?
I think we got a break. You can have one more? Okay.
This is a really important topic. Like, this is a huge lever in getting things unstuck. Please.
Once we have the loyalty set, do we attribute the incrementality or like the incremental profit to CRM or to loyalty or to both?
What a great question.
Yeah.
I love that. That's the last one. To your first one, sorry, can you repeat the first one again?
It is enough to have a loyalty program per se.
Yeah.
Then we cannot deliver on the CRM.
I love that question. Because that cognitive pulse again, as I mentioned, loyalty is an outcome, and I think, is it enough? Is the right question. I think it's 100% a great place for people to start, but it can't be where you end. Similar to the research that Forrester had shared, loyalty is an explicit platform from which your collectors or customers can say, I'm ready to commit. Right? And that's just such a great opportunity for you to understand, okay, who's really all in, right? But then to your point, once they've done that, it is our obligation to be more relevant and to be personalized. And so I think it's just as critical, right? One, to set up that program so that somebody can say, hey, I'm committed to you, but then it's just as critical then to get the intelligence on a day-to-day basis. So from a loyalty CRM standpoint, are they both important? I think they're really one and the same, right? If loyalty is an outcome and not just a program, I think what you do with CRM capabilities is really part of that experience that you're going to feed. I don't see them as differently, honestly. I think the interdependence, especially today more than ever, is so tight. And I think the other thing that I just want to say and refocus on is, we used to look at loyalty just loyalty management systems. I think loyalty, MarTech, AdTech, all of it, it's convergent. It's the same. And we need to really look at it that way, because it's just one customer at the end of that, right? They're not different customers, but we're treating them like they're different customers. So until we actually accept that and see that and practice in that way, we're never really going to be fully connected to that end customer.
People and priorities.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. Very exciting. Thank you. We're all going to be around. We're going to take a break. We're going to have lunch. And then we're going to come back for more. So far, so good, everybody?